Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED, and this is Q5 Ham Radio. The contest crew, Chris KL9A, Dan N6MJ, Randy K5ZD, and Bill W9KKN are back together for another session taking you inside the world of amateur radio contesting. Each time we sit down, we share not just scores and strategy, but also the stories, the lessons, and the camaraderie that make contesting one of the most exciting parts of the hobby. First, a quick thanks to our friends at DX Engineering, trusted by contesters, DXers, and portable operators worldwide. And today, Randy, Dan, and I are sporting the brand new DX Engineering Q5 shirt, courtesy of Tim Duffy. And I'm sure you'll see more of these at upcoming events. So let's get to it. Before we dive into SO2R solutions, I'd like to get an update from each of you about what's happening in your worlds. Bill packing up for a move to Illinois, Randy with his station rebuild in Ohio, Chris with the Montana Ranch, and Dan's perpetual search for the best station from which he can set a new world record. Randy, let's begin with you.
Well, making progress on building things. I have 2 towers up. I've got antennas on one of them, and I have radios in place and an amplifier, so I was actually able to work people in WAE as horrible as conditions were. And I have a crane coming in a couple of days to help get the 40 and 20 meter antennas up on the other tower, and then we'll have infrastructure in place, just a matter of finding all the right feed lines and control cables to hook it all together.
And you have a new amp behind you?
I got a PGXL solid state amplifier. I've been lusting after a solid state amp for a while, and it seems like they've become reliable enough that it's worth giving a try. You almost have to buy 2 of them though, so you can always have one in transit back to the factory, but this one I've heard is pretty good, so we'll see.
So you're close to turning the corner and being done.
Well, it's still a ways from being done. That's why I referred to all the cabling. I've got a whole garage floor full of cables, and I keep looking at them and going, well, which one is the one that I need for this particular run? And I don't want to try to cut them, and I waste more time trying to figure out how to use what I have efficiently than if I just went out and cut off a hunk of cable and used it.
And the WAE, was that just a partial effort?
Yeah, just for fun. I worked 400 guys or something like that. Gave out some QTCs. The conditions were incredibly terrible. I don't know what it is this year. It seems like every contest we get to have solar flare 1 or 2 or 3. And, well, Dan can tell you about how bad WAE was. He was actually trying.
So, Dan, let's move on to you. I think you were at N2QV again, right, for WAE?
Yeah, so I was at N2QV doing it remotely. And the remote setup was super slick, by the way. It was super easy to get it going. I was really hopeful for the contest because leading up to the contest, of course, conditions were amazing. But like Randy said, it seems like every contest this year, we have that same thing. Like in IARU about a month ago, same thing. Leading up to the contest, conditions were great. And then during the contest, it was just absolutely terrible. And even from a big station in New York, Worked All Europe was a really big struggle for a lot of the time. And so going in, I was honest with the guys, N2QV and W2X. I said, hey, if conditions are good, I'm more than happy doing a full 36-hour effort in this thing. But if conditions are not good, I'm going to go enjoy myself, sit in the spa for a while, spend time with family. And that's kind of how the weekend turned out. I think I put in 18 or 19 hours total, which was fun. But that was enough for this contest.
Tell us more about the remote setup. You said it was an easy hookup.
Yeah, I don't know all the details. Shocker, I know, but but basically, I was using K3s on my side, connecting to their K3s on their side, and it's all done by software that's been written by W2X. It's all custom, and so basically, all I have to do is connect through a web browser to each radio, and I have full control on my side, and there was no issues at all. Worked great.
And Chris, still building in Montana?
Yeah, slowly. The problem is everybody keeps scheduling things on my days off, so my trips up to the ranch have been minimal. But I do what I can at home. I just repaired all the aluminum for the 80-meter Foursquare that broke, and anything I can do at home, I'm doing. Fire season has kicked off here, and that's a big concern of mine. So I got everything mowed, and hopefully it's not an issue, but that should help in case we have a problem. The biggest thing I'm doing now is just preparing for CQ Worldwide this fall, and that takes up a lot of time to practice.
And did you operate in the WAE or the NAQP?
I did not. Those were contests that are not on my calendar. NEQP in August is half of what it is in January, so I usually skip it.
And Bill, I know you're packing for Illinois. Tell us.
Yep, that's right. So if I haven't said to anything to anybody yet, I'm moving from California to Illinois. I've got a plot of land. I'm going to build a station there. I mean, I know that Illinois is not the best place to build a station, but mostly I've been packing, and that's a whole lot of work. I've found projects that I forgot about years ago in my little workshop area here, and I also I'm getting ready for the contest season coming up here. I'll do CQPs, my probably one of my last ones in California. And then it's off to the worldwides and such, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But that's other personal good news. I'm down about 30 pounds since Dayton, so I've been working out and practicing my CW, and I'm ready to go into fall here.
So the topic tonight is SO2R, and Randy, you got this this topic I think from one of the clubs in Ohio. So why don't you lead it off?
Well, I think. I don't even try to remember where this came up. Oh, yes, I was at a radio club meeting, and somebody came up and said, what did Chris and Dan use to do SO2R, to do their 2BSIQ switching and everything? And I had to confess, I had no idea. I use the Microham MK2R Plus, which is a little bit dated. I don't think they make them anymore. So I bought an extra one so that I could make sure I have a spare if something fails. But what do you guys do, especially when you're traveling and you show up at some new station? What do you do to handle all the station and audio switching?
There's two things you can do. You can do whatever the station owner has, or you can tell them to change absolutely everything to do what you want. Both ways work. One way is easier. I use the Microham stuff works just fine. I use the YCCC SO2R box. The Rig Select Pro is the new one. That one's cool. They all do the same thing. There's nothing special. You just need audio switching. Dan uses the PTT version. The PTT drives the audio switching. It's nothing complicated and fancy. It's all in the software, I think, and how you coordinate that stuff.
But if you could, so question on the table is, all right, I want to do this SO2R stuff. I can buy anything. What do I want? If
I could buy anything for SO2R, I would buy an obsolete YCCC SO2R box because it doesn't have any audio clicking and the transformers in the audio are solid. It doesn't do anything fancy. It just works. If somebody wanted to buy the greatest and greatest, they'd buy the Rig Select Pro. It does everything and more. It's really impressive. And it'll do more than you ever want. It'd be great for digital modes too. It's got a lot of SO3R plus RTTY stuff. But you only need one computer. You can do multiple computers if you want, but if you're just getting started, one computer is totally fine. And a controller. And then, every rig already has USB control, and that's trivial. So it really isn't hard. The hard part of SO2R and 2BSIQ is the stuff between your ears. It's not the hardware stuff.
Well, I know I used the Rig Select Pro for a while. It is great. The real advantage of the Rig Select Pro is it uses standard connectors for everything. Standard audio cables. Nice. You can buy anywhere. The YCCC box, you got to be really good at making DIN connectors, right? Or find a friend.
But once you do it, you're done. You don't have to do it again.
What I've been doing recently from N2QV, the last couple of contests, we've just been using the YCCC box as well. Super simple setup. All the audio switching happens, and have had no, 2BSIQ issues whatsoever. So YCCC box is definitely one of the easier ways to go overall. Bill can maybe talk a little bit more about what it is that we've been using at ZF1A and ND7K. It's not like off the shelf kind of stuff, but he can probably go over it quickly and make it make sense.
Yeah. So what we use at both of those stations, and largely what Dan's used, for the longest time, were custom boxes by K6AM. You hear us talk about the secret black boxes as they were. Oftentimes in our 3830s and these programs. But I have to say that the brilliance of these boxes isn't in what they're capable of, it's their simplicity. They're just small building blocks. And effectively what if you were to take one of these apart, and I'll show you just real quick here, it's a couple of transistors, and it's one of these Switchcraft 36L double pull, double throw switches with a center a center mode where it actually just takes one of each pin. And effectively, what that lets you build with just like I said, a couple transistors, a couple pull-up resistors, and such, is something that you use two computers, two radios. It takes a PTT signal, and when it from both radios, and when it hears radio 1 transmitting, it puts the audio left and right on radio 2, and when radio 2 is transmitting, left and right goes to radio 1, and when neither is, you hear one in each ear, and then you have the switch to override that decision. No TRSP, no software, no anything, no special volume controls, just as simple as you could design this little box. Very easy to troubleshoot, very easy to fix, and that's sort of what the K6AM audio switch box is. It's literally a switch and a couple of transistors, and of course isolation transformers and relays too, but nothing that a first year double E couldn't build in 10 minutes.
So we've mentioned audio transformers a couple of times. There's no question that when you start connecting different radios together, you're going to end up with artifacts or hum or something if you don't keep things isolated.
Yep, that's exactly right. You have to. I mean, unless there's really not a way around it. You're going to have two different ground potentials on two different radios, and your audio path, your audio cables are going to be a sneak path. So unless you want to hear audio hum, then every SO2R box that I've seen in a very long time has audio transformers buffering the two different grounds. Two different audio.
Now, the CQ Worldwide rules require single ops to record the contest. So when you have to add recording into all this, how do you do that?
When I was in TI, the audio recording into the Micro 2 radio, Microham, Micro 2 radio, whatever, the little one, it made it almost unusable because of the hum and the clicking, and it was brutal. I used the exact same box, not the exact same one, same model in Madeira, and it was totally fine. So I think that one thing that works in one place does not work another, and that's really freaking annoying when you're traveling and you don't have it set up at home, because it literally ruined the setup for the contest for like 6 hours till we could figure it out. So I don't have an answer to your question other than recording is always a pain in the butt, and if you don't test it correctly where you're going to be, it will bite you every single time.
So I'll ask the question that you guys all know the answer to, but if the YCC box is so great, why aren't they made anymore?
Well, it was a club project, and I think led by K1XM and W1UE. W1UE was helping build them for people for a while, but it was really a kit. And I think they just ran out of... They sold a lot of them. I don't know how many. There are more than a couple of thousand that are floating around out there in the world. Not everybody got them built. Not everybody got the connectors all put together correctly. And probably the takeaway from this should be keep your eyes and ears open when you hear of a YCCC SO2R box becoming available, because somebody doesn't know what to do with it anymore. Jump on it, because even if you don't use it, somebody else is looking for one, that's for sure.
So the next basic question, if you happen to get one, are they pretty easy to hook up?
It's not rocket science. The DIN connector is the hardest part. If it's a kit, it's super simple. It's easy. It's actually, I purposely found a kit because I wanted to build it. I think I did it in a weekend pretty easy. But the cables you make yourself, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but you're only going to do it once. So just DIN connectors are awful. They always have been.
Yeah. So part of the trick with one of these kits is that when you assemble the kit, every call it 8 months or so, one of the part numbers isn't available from Mouser anymore. It's been superseded or something, and you have to find an equivalent, and it's a whole lot of hassle to keep a kit sort of alive over an extended period of time, just because even if it's an identical part, like like a little resistor or a capacitor or something, you'll find that okay, it's discontinued now there's another one, and now that you have to update the bill of materials for every new kit going out. As far as the YCCC SO2R box, I think that It's definitely a very simple, very elegant design. I like that they use the solid state way of audio switching. So I don't believe there are any relays that are actually involved in the audio switching path. It's these, I believe, Max chips that do the audio switching. One piece of advice for the DIN connectors: if you just go on Amazon and find a donor connector, instead of soldering to them, just chop it off and solder to that. Then you don't have to deal with the connector itself. Just deal with the wires and ohm it out and figure out which pins which, because they're usually color coded, and that's the fastest way to avoid having to actually solder anything to that cable.
I guess this kind of goes without saying, but I think all of the major softwares support SO2R and being able to help switch things. I was interested when you were talking about the K6AM device, and you said that if you were transmitting on wire radio, it always switched both ears to the other radio. I tried that when I first started out. It drove me crazy. I found myself constantly disoriented as to what was going on, and so I don't operate with that. I pretty much am always in one radio in each ear, or I've selected that I want both ears on a particular radio. So I'm just curious what Dan and Chris, what's your default?
Not the way you do it. Holy cow, that would be brutal, dude. I mean, we're not letting Dan talk.
I'm not a 2BSIQ guy.
Yeah.
Dan had 10,000 cues with it in both ears. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, when I first started, I didn't know any better, so I did it Randy's way. I had the entire contest. I had the right radio in the right ear, left radio in the left ear, and just dealt with it, And I think it was Chris that kind of went down the other path of figuring out how to do the way that we're doing it now. So whenever we're transmitting on the right radio, we hear everything on the left radio, and vice versa. And that really was a huge game changer, at least for high rate 2BSIQ like we're doing in CQ Worldwide in the Caribbean. Like it's like night and day how much it really helps. Because I think after you do it for a while, you really have an easier time focusing on what's happening in the headsets, and being able to hear on both sides without interference from the other side is a huge deal.
Well, there's a switch to turn the automatic off if you just want to have the switch actuation, and that's pretty easy to do if you need to use it. That's
one reason the YCCC box is nice, because it has the manual switch on the front, and it's not a push button. You don't have to mess with anything else. It's just a flip. It's just that much faster. When you're talking about getting disoriented, Randy, every contest I do, I'll log something on the wrong side mostly because I'm not paying attention and I'm thinking about something else on my phone or whatever. And I'll call the guy and report it, and then I'll hear him call me back on the other side. It's like, crap, sorry, man, wrong side. Which can be a detriment, at high rate after 45 hours. I mean, you're losing cues because you're screwing up, and that's a problem I have to deal with. But again, the YCCC box has lights and LEDs on the front, which helps. And then, like DX log, you can see which side you're transmitting or receiving on. I'm sure the other ones do it too. I just don't use them. So the visual with 2BSIQ for me is super important when I get tired.
Yeah, I think the 2BSIQ really changed things a lot, because when I was in my formative years learning all this stuff, we didn't even comprehend such a thing. And so we were spending so much time kind of running on one radio and tuning on the other one. And so that automatic switching back and forth kind of drove me crazy, because I was always in this mode where the guy I'm listening to on the second radio was just about to send his call, and then the CQ would end and it would switch everything back, and it was like, I just missed it. And so I kind of lived in that mode, especially when I'm running on one radio, tuning on the other. I wanted to hear both, because if nobody answered me on the CQ radio, I could just keep listening on the main one. But again, I'm mostly in the old-fashioned SO2R mode, where I'm running in one place and tuning the other one. And I don't think I'm going to ever get beyond that. I've tried the 2BSIQ a few times, and I can maybe go 10 minutes before I get so messed up, or people start calling me and I sound like such a lid that I abandon.
That's what the simulator's for. That way you don't do it over the air.
Then I have to figure out how to set up the simulator.
It's easy.
That one's easy.
Well.
So if we're done with the SO2R topic, what's happening for CQ Worldwide this fall? Where are you going to be, Randy?
I think right now I bought plane tickets to go be in V4, V47T with N2NT and K4ZW. I think we'll be multi-single. I don't know if we decided yet, but that's the plan. It just seems there's just something about that station and being loud and being out of the United States, and especially as we see the conditions start to fall out the other side of the sunspot cycle, it's definitely more fun to be DX. So that's what I'm going to do. For CW, the Sweepstakes CW will be the maiden voyage from here for real, and then CQ Worldwide will be where I see just how bad it is to be a W8 compared to a W1.
So worldwide phone, we're going to be multi-single at CQ9A. We've got a huge team. It should be great. We're looking forward to learning how the Europeans do in-band. Bill and Dan are kind of the experts on in-band in the US, and of course it's ZF1A. And we're going to learn a new style. It should be really cool. They got a lot of cool ideas that we really haven't used in the US. So we'll be multi-single for that. And then in CW, I'll be single up from CQ9A also. So I built the station in Montana and then travel somewhere else for contests.
When I was building my station and I would talk about going on an expedition, my wife would always do but wait, you just spent all this money on building your own station. Why are you going somewhere?
Yeah, I told my wife like 15 times my plans, but the other day she's like, wait, so you're going there twice again? Yeah, come on, pay attention. Work with me here.
Whoa, I bet you
She's
didn't
not
say
behind
pay
me, is
attention.
she?
So, Chris, who are all the players on that team?
Gosh, it's a list. So from the US is me and Dan and Bill, Dave KM3T, Levi K6JO, who we've had on here. Tim N6WIN is going. That's all the US guys, I think. Yeah. And then Valerie, of course, will be there. And Serge E1A, who is a WRTC op and really, really fantastic operator. Alex EW1NY, another great operator, will be there. Raleigh LY4A, everyone's worked him lots of times, also a WRTC operator. And I feel like I'm missing some guys that are going to be there for technical support. But it's a really big crew, and I think we'll have 5 or 6 radios going for a multi-single, which is going to be super cool.
And Bill, where does that leave you for CW?
Plan is still to go to ZF. It is Thanksgiving week, but there are priorities, guys. So the plan the plan is still coming together. We're still kind of figuring out who's going to be with us and all of that, but that'll be where I operate.
And Dan, what about you for CW?
I'm going to be somewhere working on some things right now.
There it is.
Oh man.
All I know for sure is
about so you can point someplace.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to decide what I want to do.
He has to say yes or no. Or
is this where we start trash talking, or do we have to wait for that?
Oh no, I was going to say. I mean, that's the thing. I have like lots of options at the moment, and I don't know what I want to do yet. It would be amazing to go against Chris from somewhere in Africa as well. That may or may not happen. And then I also have the potential maybe to go back to N2QV. That's interesting to me as well because I know that Milan is going to be operating from K1LZ as a single op. So it would be kind of fun to go against him from that station as well. And then there's still potential maybe going on to ZF, joining Bill in the crew again. That's always a lot of fun.
If you have to.
Yeah, it's like my fourth option.
At least
but the good news is, me and Chris have really put in the effort in the last week or so to start practicing. So the trash talk is starting to ramp up a little bit. You're going to see a lot of KL9A sucks in the next couple of months. It's all out of love, guys. But yeah. we don't actually hate each other. But no, you might get that feeling from all of our trash talking Facebook posts. So
there's like 48 hours where we probably don't see eye to eye. But other than that.
Yeah. And is there any word about who's going to be operating from D4C?
As far as we know, we heard there was some station damage there with that tropical storm, but I think Brazzo was committed to going, but I hope so. That would be awesome. We need to get as many guys on as we can while the sunspots are high. I'd love to see 25 3-point land stations going at it, but I guess we'll survive with 3 or 4.
So one of the big things that happened this week was the WRTC invites went out to the team leaders. I got one. I was very happy about that, and the deal was they sent out the TL invites, and then you respond with who your TM is going to be. And of course, that started causing a little bit of reshuffling as different teams pair up, and that frees up spots for more guys to be invited. So I think we're in that process now where they're getting the responses and then filling in the slots that have become available.
So I guess the big question, Dan, you're a team leader. Who are you going to pick for your teammate?
It's still kind of up in the air. No, I'm kidding. I gave I gave Chris a lot of crap about it, but you know, in the end, I did pick him. So I think it's quasi official now that we will be a team in England next year. So actually, pretty excited about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even I got the letter and the email, and even they were giving me crap about it. So.
So Randy, what's the timing? How long do the team leaders have to sign up or not?
It sounded like the expectation was really just a couple of weeks. They really want to try to get everybody to respond right away, and so they know who's coming. For example, my partner is going to be W2SC, and Tom also was the number one qualifier for the Caribbean region, and by having him join me, that then frees up the Caribbean for the number 2 guy, who I think is NP4Z. So it just starts, you can see how things cascade from there. So we just have to wait and see. I suspect within the next couple of weeks they'll put out the list as it is. And then there's always changes that happen. Life happens, people can't get away, or their situation changes or whatever. So there are provisions in the rules to be able to replace somebody if they can't make it later on. But for the most part, it's quite an honor just to get on the list and then start planning to be there next summer.
So I understand the WRTC is collaborating with World Radio League for the software. Have you gotten any updates on that, what that looks like?
So all the word so far is that they're not doing, they are going to collect data from QSOs as they're being made, but the competitors will be using their own logging softwares. So WRL's job is collect data and then repurpose it back out to the world in some kind of nice, dynamic, flashy UI that can make the competition more interesting or more accessible, or I don't know what all. That's been kind of a little bit of a mystery as exactly what WRL is going to do. But they did do some testing during this IRU a couple of weeks ago, and they overall seem to be happy with what they were able to do and produce. And the WRL guys definitely seem to understand programming and making UI, so it'll be fascinating to see what they come up with to try to get people involved, because there's a couple of different goals. I'm just assuming some things here. As competitors, we can't see any of this stuff. We're still operating in our bubble. But there are people who are chasing the WRTC competitors, so they might want to see kind of the blackout bingo card of who have they worked everybody and that kind of thing. There are friends and family who want to see how the different teams are doing, even though they may not know who they are by call sign. And I don't know what else they're going to come up with out of all that to gamify it a little bit, but it should be interesting.
So basically an online scoreboard.
Yes, only with real QSO data in live time. Like I said, since the competitors can't see it, we just have to keep doing what we've always done and hope and then wait for the big reveal at the end.
Any other word from the WRTC about changes this year?
I don't know. Have they published the competition rules yet? I'm not sure. But anyway, I don't expect anything is going to change. It's really, the formula seems to be pretty well set. I think they did. They did define what the scoring was. The Italians had extra points for phone. I think the UK is going to go back to an emphasis on CW. Which in a way, kind of too bad. The Italian one really forced you to make some hard decisions about wanting to try to make phone work, even though IRU, low power, tends to be a CW contest.
Well, thank you for joining me. My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. This has been Q5 Ham Radio with the contest crew, 73.